So I was saying, you take the tiger's head, and then there's the elephant. Wait, never mind. We don't do this is a family show. We don't want to do that.
Yeah. No, we finish that later after the stream is over. Welcome everybody to Nerdside Champs. I have Dan down there at the bottom of your screen. It's Tim. Subscribe to @Nerd Champs. We are the Nerd Champs. Joining us today from right here on YouTube, Bone Bridger.
The man.
We're talking about
the legend.
The legend. The one. Now listen,
I had to come back for the finale. Because I was like, all right, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be prepared to stay awake. And like right now, I think it's like 3 a.m. for me. I need to be super asleep, but worth it.
This baby's throwing your schedule off, man.
Yeah.
Tonight we're in serious trouble. He's just not going to sleep. So
yeah. Now listen, everybody. We told you a few weeks ago that you should blame Jonathan for getting us started. This was the first time that we did this from Comic Book Cinema. But the reason that we really have a channel was shortly after we did Jonathan's show, the Bone Bridger invited us to review The Acolyte every week. And we did that, and we had nothing to promote. Everybody else there had their own channel, but we're just and Dan and Tim are just here. So we felt lacking. So that's why this is here. And so you can send.
We got shamed into it.
Yeah. You can send. After you tell us how much you hate us, you can let Bone Bridger that you're mad at him too, that we're here.
I think it's totally worth it, though. I think the world needs more people willing to watch shows like Skeleton Crew and talk about it because nobody's watching it.
No. We are
Dan,
Ali.
Dan, you might want to check your mic, man. Check your mic and make sure it's on.
Is it not on? Hold on.
It's not on, buddy.
You guys go ahead and talk.
Computer audio.
Yep.
I've had that happen.
Settings.
Yep.
Audio.
It's all good. Nothing better than a live show, folks. Yep, that's better.
All right.
Welcome to the party.
Must have been a loose cord. You still hear me?
I don't know.
All right. Yeah. So tonight we're doing Skeleton Crew episode 8, the finale, the real good guys. And I guess the real good guys are us because we're still here suffering through all of the bad Star Wars to talk to you. Oh, and we got more guests. Welcome, Travis.
Travis.
What's up?
Hey. Sorry I'm late.
All right.
That's okay.
So
we just got started. So
we are probably at least, now that there's 4 of us, we're 50, 60% of the viewing audience.
Yes,
we're Skeleton
absolutely.
Crew. We're all present and accounted for. So now that we're all here, and the other 2 people might be in the chat, we can get into it. We can talk about this episode. We have some comments in here. We'll get to in a minute. But initial thoughts, what has your reaction been to watching the Skeleton Crew, Bone Bridger? What have you thought?
I kind of liked it, to be honest. The only thing that disappointed me, well, granted, now I approached it from this is a kid's show, but also this is the best we could get from Star Wars, I think, at this point. I think this is probably top tier Disney, Star Wars, whatever that is. But I think the thing that got me was that season finale. I think they really had this season that was kind of building up cool, and then they just had this last episode, and they had a chance for this villain to be really menacing and stick to it. And I feel like they pulled their punches. They should have had the kid have to tackle him out the window or something, really crazy, because he was a great character. I think Jude Law's character was great. But I don't know. This is just what Star Wars is now. This is where we are. Yeah.
This is definitely, it's not earth-shattering, but it's good. And just being able to say, but on the other hand, I'm stopping and thinking to myself, how good does something have to be for me to even feel like it's good? I think it might be even better than I'm giving it credit for because I'm in such a bad place. I go in wanting to hate it. So for me to even acknowledge that it's okay, it's probably better than that. This is what I'm starting to think maybe. Travis, what have you felt about the last? You've been with us a lot, but now that it's all over, what is your overarching feeling for the series?
I think it's been the greatest Star Wars thing we've had in quite a while. Was it perfect? No, I don't think so. But I think we've definitely not had anything this good for quite a while. I remember being excited when The Mandalorian started and those first couple episodes and really getting in. Had people over to my house. We were excited. We had Star Wars back again, and it was actually looking good. And so I feel like we've got some of that back here. Again, it's not perfect, but I think it's been really good overall.
All right. Tim, did you have your over, and then we'll get into the comments and maybe do the recap after the comments. But
I thought that it finished pretty well. I thought that the series start to finish was very good. I thought that they did very well. I think that Bone Bridger hit the nail on the head when he said this is as good as we're going to get from Star Wars. I would say Star Wars and Disney needs to consider more of these type of projects if they really want to continue the universe and not just own the properties. I think that's really there's a difference, right? There's a difference between just owning Star Wars and making theme park and selling the merchandise and actually trying to continue to grow the universe. If they're going to continue to grow the universe, they're going to have to do it with stories like this that are still captivating stories, but kind of leave the canon alone a little bit. I think that's kind of the most important thing to me right now is that's one of the things that I didn't like about all the other stuff, right? I didn't like Obi-Wan. I didn't like the Acolyte. I didn't like Boba Fett. I didn't like all that stuff because it was really messing with stuff that we had thought for decades about the canon. And so when we kind of push that to the side and say, you know, can we just have a fun adventure story in the Star Wars universe? That's what I think Disney needs to focus more on, are these kind of stories. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of what Star Wars is if they're going to continue owning it. That's what they need to be focused on, I think.
I'm going to run through these comments, and then we'll kind of recap the events. John Stowe knows nothing. I loved how the episode came to a natural end, but I hate that there was no setup for anything else. So what do we think? Do we think that they didn't set up anything because they didn't have confidence that there would be anything, so they wanted to give you some level of closure in case there isn't? Or what do we think about the way that they wrapped up with no cliffhanger?
I think they were told that they needed to end it and not have anything lingering. I think the changes at Lucasfilm behind the scenes are not very apparent in terms of what they're saying, but I think there's trouble behind the scenes. Like, you know, we've heard all these rumors of Marvel changing, and clearly bringing Robert Downey Jr. back is a sign that desperation has set in. Star Wars has been weird, though. Andor Season 2's budget is breathtaking. It's like more than every Star Wars movie ever made. I think this one needed to end. Even if it was great with viewership, I don't think they were doing another one. I think that they were set that Star Wars is about to change big time. I don't even know if I buy anything happening other than the Mandalorian movie. The Rey movie stuff, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe the Ahsoka stuff. I feel like they were told this needs to just end. Like, this needs to be a show that just ends and these characters are done. Which is, you know, they did a great job. I think the kids, the acting, it was great. I think Jude Law did a great job. The acting, I have no complaints about, really.
Yeah.
It's a shame. They did a good job, and I hope they feel like they did a good job, because this is one of those situations where, like, everyone involved actually made a good show, and they didn't, like, self-sabotage. It's just Star Wars is in rough shape.
Yeah.
Dan, while I'm working on my pontification, work on your audio, because I hear some kind of a rattling thing. I don't know if it's your mic or something. There's something rattling when you're talking. But anyway, but while I think the same thing, that, you know, that this kind of coming to that natural end was kind of a good thing. But one of the things that I didn't like about previous series is that they kind of went into that whole thing about setting up a season 2. I mean, that's the Acolyte. That's what it felt like the whole time. Is they were just setting up a season 2. It didn't feel like it was going anywhere. Didn't feel like they had any direction. Didn't feel like they had any idea what they wanted to do. They just completely and totally went with the idea of setup in mind. And then even in Ahsoka, right? Even in Ahsoka, at the very end, they had Ray Stevenson standing there on the end, and it looked like they were going to set up kind of future seasons for that as well. And so, I don't know, man. I'm really glad that they did kind of come to a natural end on this. One of the big things, though, is I don't think they really could have continued. We're talking about a series that focuses on kids. Those kids are going to grow up pretty quick because they're pretty young. So this would have been one of those things that would have been hard to keep going for very long, unless you're going to do something like next year, which we know they're not going to. So I think that Jude Law's character was fantastic. I think that his acting in this show was fantastic. This is kind of what we expected when we saw Carrie Ann Moss was going to be in The Acolyte, right? We expected, it's a big name actor. They're coming into Star Wars. They're going to actually do something. And then they killed her in the first 5 minutes of the show. So It was good to actually see an actor act in Star Wars. That was good. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be a setup for anything else. I think the Skeleton Crew was a one and done. That's what I feel like.
Travis, do you think we're going to see any more of these kids?
You know, I'm feeling that, like you guys, that we're probably not. I mean, I think it'd be fun to see them, even if they found a way to tell a good story with those kids older. That would be neat to see. But I feel like they were setting this up to be one and done, and I think that's okay. I think sometimes maybe we have gotten to the point in media where we feel like everything's got to be a setup for something else. If you remember way back in the beginning of the MCU, you know, Iron Man 2 had so many things that it was working through to try to set up something bigger than what it was. And some of those best stories early on were they just handled what they had. They handled what they had, and they didn't have to tell a story that connected to everything. I, for one, would love to see some Star Wars stories that don't connect, like you said, Tim, don't connect to canon, don't connect to all these different characters that we've seen before. I think it'd be great just to see some fun stories about things that go on Tatooine. You know, some planet out there that's got something going on that could be exciting. We could tell some fun stories without making it Star Wars, as in there's a big war going on and it affects everything in the galaxy. But I don't think they are planning on anything. It doesn't seem that way anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
you think about some of the source material that they drew inspiration from, the Goonies, which I know the rumor this last year was that they're going to make a Goonies sequel, Goonies Live Forever, but I don't know if we need that sequel because that told a complete story, and you didn't need the further adventures of the Goonies for that movie to be great. Or they drew a lot of inspiration for this. I know people keep mentioning the Goonies, but I got E.T. vibes throughout this whole series. And you don't need the further adventures of Elliot and Gertie. You know what I'm saying? Now that E.T. you don't need E.T. to come back and you have fun adventures with E.T. and Elliot. Sometimes you can tell a complete story and be done with a character, and that's okay. So, would I like to see these guys again? Yeah, but again, I don't think Star Wars is in the place where they can support it probably. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that after the Titanic sinks, you don't need a sequel about Rose and Jack, right? I mean, this is situation. This was a very natural ending to the show. I don't think that the story needed to go anywhere else. So.
Very honest, slow. So Wim and Neil finally became the heroes they always wanted to be, but are they really the reason they won? Now Wim did get his crowning moment of being not useless in the very last episode.
Finally happened.
He managed to spin some lies and not be a complete idiot. And install Jude. I know that early, Bone Bridger, you stopped in early, and Wim was kind of getting on your nerves. Did you ever come around on Wim, or did he stay on your nerves for the full run?
He stayed on my nerves, but I guess that's just what he's supposed to be. I just accepted that that's who he is, and that it makes sense. If you look at the way they live on that planet and the parents and that whole thing, it works. I think this show would have been very different for me if they didn't quickly get off the planet. Like, I'm glad they did, and I'm glad they introduced the pirates and stuff, because that was very needed, desperately needed. I mean, it's just interesting that they made this show when they know, regardless of how Star Wars is doing, kids aren't watching Star Wars and kids aren't watching Disney Plus, which is kind of ironic. You think Disney Plus was like the big demographic for young people, but they watch Netflix, which is just that's mind-boggling to me. But that's just where they are. Not my favorite character.
I'll second that. I didn't care for Wim on a personal level, and what really made that really interesting is they kind of tried to set him up as like the main protagonist for the show, and I just did not buy that, and I don't think anybody did. The way I looked at it is the kids as a group were kind of the protagonist, and you were cheering for the kids. You weren't really cheering for Wim, but Wim ended up being, the guy that just did not get it and did not understand what was happening the whole time. For a main character, some of his naivete, if you will, was just a bit too much, I think, for the main character. And so, although he did have his kind of heroic moment, and it was really funny watching Neil go all Paul Blart Mall Cop and roll around with the walkie-talkie and everything. That was really cool. But Wim, not my favorite character. And honestly, like I said, I viewed the kids as a group more as the main protagonist than him individually.
Travis, how did you feel about Wim and Neil? Wim primarily, I guess, is who we're zeroing in on.
Wim was he was just Neil's wingman. I mean, that's what I kind of felt like with Wim. He was just there to make Neil really cool looking. I feel like they just didn't. Maybe the writers didn't know. They wanted 4 kids, maybe, but they didn't know quite exactly what to do with that last one. He kind of had the hero complex going on, which, even though I can kind of relate to that, it didn't work well for me. He did, I guess, get a shining moment here kind of at the end. But if you look back, if you took kind of just Wim out of the picture, would it change the story that much? And his dad comes in at the end and kind of gets some moments. We see Wim's dad more than maybe the other parents, and it kind of helps us see the building of that world. But Wim,
talking about Neil here, you know what I mean? They set up something at the beginning of the series that they never went back to, where Neil has this crush on this green goat girl or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he didn't get any opportunity to save her or anything at the end. It would have been like the perfect thing that they set up, and he just rolls in like John McClane and saves her. It would have been amazing. So I don't know. I was kind of that's one missed opportunity right there. Neil saving the green goat girl would have been awesome.
They may have tried to subvert expectations on purpose, because that first episode is very much structured to make you feel like Wim is the protagonist of this whole thing. And immediately beyond that, you learn that Wim is really the buffoon. He's the fool of this group. He is not the protagonist. He is like the least of the 4. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they set that up on purpose to try to subvert our expectations. And what Bone Bridger was talking about with Disney Plus, I don't know what the linear numbers are for linear television right now, but could Disney have gotten this to a larger audience? And I know they're obsessed with trying to get people to do streaming and all of this, but I mean, at the end of the day, I got to believe there are still kids out there who watch the Disney Channel. Like, couldn't they just put something like this on the Disney Channel? And why not? Why couldn't they put this? They would definitely get more. I would have to believe it would get more eyeballs on the Disney Channel, right?
Yeah. Or
You know?
I mean, or other streaming platforms. I mean, they could. I know that Marvel, when they were struggling with viewership, they waited a couple weeks and they dropped Echo on Hulu, and they've done things like that before to try to kind of bolster some numbers, get some viewership, and get some people talking. And I mean, honestly, that's the kind of thing. They own so many properties. They've actually done late night ABC release before as well. These are things that are options for them to try to get people watching these shows, because if this show was actually presented to the right audience the right way, they would watch it and they would love it. Okay. But just expecting people to find it is the biggest problem that Disney has right now. They're expecting people to find their content just by word of mouth or anything. They didn't do any promotion for this show at all. I mean, we saw the one trailer where Jude Law brought the key through the bars, and that was it. You know what I mean? There was nothing else. What made you want to watch the show just watching that trailer? Just seeing Jude Law? No, that's not going to do it, man. So yeah, there's got to be more. They own so many properties. They really should have pushed it harder, I think.
I know that we look at these production values and budgets for these streaming shows, and it's like you can only spend that much money on a streaming show. But I really don't understand why, because streaming is like the least profitable avenue to release any of this. Like, why couldn't this have been a mini series on ABC? Why couldn't any of these be like, I know why Andor maybe couldn't. It's a little too adult. I mean, you don't want a 10 o'clock drama on broadcast television to be about Star Wars. But this could have been like an 8 o'clock Monday night prime time. They were only like 30 minutes. This could have been like a Star Wars sitcom that the family could have watched on ABC. I mean, am I crazy?
Do we still is the Wonderful World of Disney still a thing that comes on like Sunday nights? Does that still happen on ABC? I mean, I remember that from when I was a kid, but I mean that seems like a perfect time to show something like this.
Exactly, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. That definitely could have happened. You know,
like you look at the business end of this, Bumbers. Why do they want all this content to be purely on streaming?
I've been baffled by this for a while. Disney is just hell bent on we are going to compete. They used to say we're going to beat Netflix, and then someone realized that's just never happening. And now they say they want to catch up, and they think they can. And so they're just like trying to make streaming work. But the only thing that works for them is Hulu. So that's kind of the irony there is their Hulu shows do amazing, but they're not Disney standard shows. They're The Bear, they're The Greats. They're all these shows that kind of...
No Murders in the Building, that kind of stuff.
Murders in the Building is a huge success. They expect the Alien show to be a big success. The Alien show will have easily 10x viewership of what Skeleton Crew got. And that's kind of crazy. Like, that really shouldn't be the case. Star Wars really shouldn't play second to franchises like that. Like, it shouldn't be... I don't know. It's... the streaming part of it still loses money. The only way that it makes money is if they count it weird. Like, they have to count it real weird and do some funny business. And it's like, long term, is that going to work? Is this or season 2? Are we going to count that? And it's, what, $350 million budget or whatever if you count it all together?
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw, like, were both, you add the 2 seasons together. Isn't it something like $600 million for the 2 seasons?
It's crazy. It's like it's more than the budget of, like, most any 2 movies they've ever made. If you don't count Rise of Skywalker, because apparently it had like a $400 million budget, which, where did they spend it? I don't know.
Maybe, I'm telling you, if Billy D. Williams didn't get a huge check.
He better have. That's a great point. He better have gotten a good check.
That scoundrel.
Yeah. He got completely disrespected when they didn't call him to be running that gambling planet in The Last Jedi. Like, come on. Are you kidding me?
He was right there. He was right
opportunity
there.
Yeah. You could have changed that whole story. And the reason they go there is because, like, they're actually trying to get a weapon or something for the rebellion. So something cool. And you could have had the Empire or the First Order try to get him, and Billy D. Williams saves him. That could have been epic. Like,
okay, you could keep the whole Luke thing, right? And you still alienate, like, at least half as many people as the movie alienated, right? But if you pepper in Billy D. Williams, you get half of those people back.
It
right?
least alleviates the pain as long as he's cool and isn't like, you know.
Yeah. As long as they don't make him lame. Yeah. John Snow knows nothing. Am I the only one who would watch a standalone Jod Silvo Crimson Jack series? I would watch that. I'd watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that. That's a great idea. I mean, he's a very redeemable character in the show because honestly, his motivations were very clear from the beginning. He's a scoundrel. He's a loser. He's all those things kind of rolled into one. I think it was played very well, and yeah, that character is something that we could definitely see more of, but apparently we're not going to. So
in our headcanon, and all of our headcanon, he gets away, right? He doesn't.
he
doesn't get rounded up by those X-wings, right? I mean, he gets off.
Yeah, or blown up.
Oh, easily.
You know what I mean?
He got away.
Yeah, like he finds some New Republic pilots, and he's like, "I'm not the guy you're looking for," and they're like, "You're not the guy we're looking for," and boom, he owns an X-wing now or something. That's going to be what happens with.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I like how they didn't flesh out a whole backstory. Like they gave us a little bit, like, okay, this is kind of where he came from, but they didn't throw it all at you. And I like that left some of the mystery there. Like, okay, we got a little bit. We don't know it all. We don't need to know it all. So
yeah.
We
started through the Acolyte with you, Bone Bridger. And one point that I had last week was that this kids show showed us the moral gray area, the ambiguity of morality, way better than the Acolyte ever managed to.
Way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah, and that's this character right here is exactly who they were trying to portray in the Acolyte. They were trying to portray someone that was conflicted, that actually had bad roots and actually had an ambiguous past and all. They were trying so hard to do that in the Acolyte, and they failed so miserably. And this is the kind of character that they were trying to do. It was just done so much better. And so, yeah, I agree with Travis. I don't like that. I wouldn't have liked if he just sat there and pontificated about all his whole story and gave us the just the monologue. That's not what anybody wanted. We got enough of the story, and I think that's it. I mean,
and that was the problem with Obi-Wan. You guys brought up Obi-Wan. Like, we didn't need to see that. We didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
We just want that. Just let some things be a mystery. We don't need to know how he spent all this time with Tatooine.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we used to have mystery in storytelling. We didn't need to know every aspect of every character, and it allowed the stories to be a little deeper. They felt more lived in, and you could imagine your own backstories for some things, or not really worry about it. And that's missed. Nowadays, we get into the minutia of everything, and it's boring, really, is what it is to get it's like history class for fiction. It's not. Let's see. Barry Allen is slow. Did the supervisor remind anyone else of Hal from A Space Oddity? I have expected him to respond, "I'm sorry, Dave, but I'm afraid I can't do that." Now, the eye does kind of look like.
He did kind of look like it. You know what I mean? The big red light. And so I mean, I
was hoping
I see that.
He'd be more like the guy from Power Rangers.
Zordon.
Yeah.
Like
Zordon, yeah.
You go.
What a waste.
For the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
some guy behind a curtain. It could have been a lot of different things. The droid seemed to be the natural choice. We've been talking about it on here for a while, right, Dan? I mean, we said this is an old TOS thing. Where it's an old trope from TOS going back years, and of course, A Space Odyssey. This is another one. So yeah, it's been done before, and it didn't need to be a surprise. It didn't need to be this big reveal. So that's why I was kind of glad that it was just exactly what we thought, and it was not important to the story at all.
Sometimes simple's good.
Yeah. Sometimes the trope you expect, they could just give it to you, and it's still okay, and that's fine. And it gives us some foreshadowing for our own future when the AI overlords take over.
Yeah.
A little demonstration, like Jude tells her that she asked too many questions, and the supervisor says that is true. Compliance is key. That's maybe the lesson of the whole series. We need to take that away, that our AI overlords are telling us.
Compliance is key.
Right. And then we'll all be happy as long as we comply once the AI takes over. Barry Allen is slow. All in all, good adventure, good story. More of this eye on your franchises, Disney. More of this on your franchise. In your franchises. There we go.
Yeah, that's
Tim can feel it. So more of this. I mean, but here's the problem. Do we feel like this will ever find its audience? I mean, are they going to just...
This seems like the kind of thing that's going to have a cult following like 5 years from now, and then someone is going to push to get like a sequel series of these kids like 10 years later. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like is going to happen. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be... unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that are just discounting all of Disney Star Wars right now and can't see anything good happening. And I would point to something like this and say, this is something that is done right. If we could get more of this from Disney, it would be good. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the kind of stuff they're going to be focused on, though. So I think they're going to try to get us more sequels, more prequels, more in-betweener stories, more that kind of. That seems to be where they want to live right now, even though it's kind of ruined things. So.
Travis, do you think people will ever You think this will ever find a larger audience?
I'm not so sure it will, and I hate that. But maybe, like Tim said, years down the road, we get more of an audience, and people are wanting to see something more from these, and come back to that story. But even like the friends that I have or the people I'm around, I'm like, hey, have you checked out Skeleton Crew? And they're like, what? Like, the new Star Wars show, and they're like, oh, is it any good? Like,
Yeah.
we're already there. Like, that's where we're at. And so, word of mouth though will only get some of my friends to watch it. Will it ever get that cult following like we see with Goonies maybe, or all those great 80s movies, Gremlins, Ghostbusters, whatever, Back to the Future. I don't know. If it does, I think it'll be too late, maybe.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Does anybody see a path for Star Wars to regain its audience? Like, what kind of project would bring the audience back? Like, what would it have to be? A movie? Would it have to be on linear television? Disney Plus isn't going to bring Star Wars back, right? Because
Star Wars covers such a vast universe. There are so many unexplained and untold stories throughout this entire world. There's just so much that you could do. I feel like Disney trying to focus on continuations or kind of filling gaps in the stories that we already know is what's getting them in trouble. They need to get away from that, and they need to move toward kind of find something else in the universe somewhere and focus on that. But that's not what they're going to do, because they think everybody wants to see.
But they've done that here and nobody watched. So
yeah.
the
Well, that's
problem
because
is,
of what they've done before.
but you have two sinking ships trying to save each other. You've got, like, Disney Plus wants Star Wars to save it, and Star Wars is trying to save Disney Plus. I mean, they can't. They're both at the bottom of the pit. There's nobody pulling up here. There's like, so, like, Bone Bridger, what would you, if you like had Star Wars, somebody was like, would it be a movie? Is it linear TV? What could they possibly do?
I actually think the whole idea of a connected TV Star Wars universe would be cool in the same time frame, but you've got to get away from where we are, and you've got to go in the future. I've always been upset that they always go backwards. When going forwards is way easier. The stakes are off the table. You don't have to end. Like, the Acolyte undoes, like, it ruins so many things about Star Wars. Like, it's just unraveling things. It's like the Hunger Games prequel. It completely ruins the Hunger Games. The Star Wars, if I would just start a TV series set in the future, establish a new point in time with the universe, and it's easy for me because it'd be Grogu grown up to Yoda age, and that's your character. You get one character, and that would be the one, because it could be 700 years down the road or whatever. It could be 600 years down the road. Yeah. And it could be a new Jedi Order. It could be Grogu. It could be a new, and maybe it's a time where everything's great and peaceful and wonderful, and that just can't last. Like, that'd be a simple story to tell. Like, there are no Sith. There's nothing bad. Show, like, that everything's wonderful, and out of that, show that, like, things start to, you could tear it down, and you have your character all grown up. Because you eventually can't use Grogu over and over like this. Like, there is coming a point where I think you've got to, like, do something. And that is an opportunity to say, okay, well, 700 years from now, no Rey, no nothing. And that character can stick around for a while. And if you do it right, Yoda in the prequels was cool. If you could do that level of a Yoda, but even more important, like a younger Yoda, who's actually in charge, like, not just kind of saying one-off things to people. I don't know. That'd be
not
cool.
Walking around with the cane.
But
and, like,
you just got to get so far away from everything. And then you could use the history aspect of, like, the Sith are trying to rebuild, like, the idea of an empire again. You could just use the empire again because it's the idea of what it was. You could do all these things. I would love to see it go there. But you know what they're going to do? We're years from them rebooting and just redoing every single one of the movies. Like, just
exactly.
4, 5, and 6 are going to happen again. I just don't know when.
Or dare we say it? Don't say it. It's like Beetlejuice. They're going to introduce a Star Wars multiverse. I know that this is something that Disney absolutely loves to do. And like I said, that's one. We can't say it 2 more times on this channel, guys. We can't say it. Okay, but
we're doing that for sure.
Absolutely, they believe in all the wrong directions with that, and you're dead on right there with that, Bone Bridger, for sure.
But like that future show, would you put? I guess you'd probably put it on Hulu, right? I mean, you can't put that on Disney Plus.
I think you do it on Disney Plus, but you have to theme it right. I think it's got to be a Star Wars show geared in a way where it's like, okay, the people that love Star Wars that are willing to give it a chance are adults. Make this an adult show. It doesn't have to be like violent over themes or whatever, but make it like an emotional show. Like, I always had the idea of, I think I wrote it down somewhere just in case I ever got the job, was if I was to start my own Star Wars trilogy and stuff, what would I do? And it would immediately evolve around like a sibling set of brothers, one Sith, one good, but when they're kids, they're not. They're just kids, and they get separated and go down different paths and become whatever. And I always thought, well, that sticks with the Star Wars family theme. And then when I saw what they did with, like, what did they call it? The I was like, No, that's not what I was thinking. I was just thinking of a simple story of like how the Sith guy ends up like Vader did to save his brother in the end, not to turn good. Like Vader doesn't turn good in Star Wars. He just saves his son. Like that's the only thing he really does. He's not like good in the end. He saved Luke. And I was like, that's kind of the foundation of Star Wars. I like it'd be really cool to like do a story in that vein with a brother set, and they just turn out the way they do because of the paths they're on, not because of who they really are. But then I saw that and I was like, okay, never mind. Well, this whole Rey and Diomed, this is just.
I mean, like, I don't know, man. Do you see a possibility for Star Wars to regain a fan base? Do you think there's a way to do it?
I think there's a way that it can be done, and maybe it is through TV, and maybe it's streaming on Disney Plus or Hulu, but it's got to be done a lot better advertising wise than this, and a lot better marketing with stuff. Like, where's my Neil stuffed animal? I'm still looking for him. I mean, we can say I've got a lot of negative things I can say about the prequel trilogy. Yoda was very cool. There's some positive things there, but I remember in high school and being younger and the excitement of a Star Wars movie coming out. I think they come out they release them every 2 years. That was a big event. It was big. Mm-hmm. And I think what we're seeing with Marvel and now with Star Wars, we're just oversaturating it. There's so much content, and especially with Marvel, all the shows and everything you've got to keep up with just to see the next movie. I think we've got to unsaturate the market and let it sit for a little while, and then maybe we can get some of that fan base back and some of that excitement back.
Disney does not understand the idea of space between projects. They just don't, and they don't have the patience for that. If they're going to own Star Wars, they want to release Star Wars constantly. And, our good friend John Automate said something that stuck with me when we reviewed Ahsoka, guys. He said, Star Wars doesn't feel like an event anymore. And that is like dead on how I feel. And Travis just used the exact same word. I think that's exactly how it is. I mean, this show, there was no pomp and circumstance around it. I mean, there was absolutely nobody that I talked to that even knew what this show was, what to look forward to, if it was something they should watch, if it was something they shouldn't watch. They had nothing. And if you're going to own Star Wars and not promote it, why are you even doing it? That's kind of my thing with Disney. If you're going to own it, why are you even releasing the Skeleton Crew if you're really not going to try to get people to watch it? So I don't know. It's definitely a weird conundrum that they put themselves in.
This show, it wasn't perfect. There were some holes in this last episode. But I really don't want to delve too deeply into that, because the key thing I want people to take away is that this was a very good show. This could have been a first step towards repairing relationships with the fandom. This could have been like, here's a good show. The problem is that they've already burned through the goodwill so deeply that nobody's watching it. They didn't tell anybody it was there. They didn't promote it. And they're still not capitalizing. Like Travis said, that they have an Onyx Cinder Lego set, but there's no SM33 minifig. SM33 would be a perfect character for a Lego set that you build SM33. Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, they make those where you build Iron Man, or you build SM33 would be perfect. And people really like, he's Long John Silver, but a droid in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I mean, and Neil is perfect. Like, I haven't seen a Funko Pop. I haven't seen anything. And these are opportunities wasted. And I did do some research this week, guys. I actually Googled some stuff.
Nice.
Lucasfilm. Yeah. See, hey.
Watch out.
Yeah. Now, I got varying numbers, but the range that I was able to find is that Lucasfilm employs somewhere between 800 and 1,500 people. So Lucasfilm has, let's call it 1,000 full-time employees. Now, when George Lucas owned Lucasfilm, that meant that he probably had a smaller staff, right? Call it 700. But he had 800 full-time employees whose full-time job was to do whatever he thought of. If he dreamed up some new shit, that's what they were working on that day. Or if they subcontracted ILM to do some effects for some other guy's movie, that's what they worked on, whatever. But then when Disney buys Lucasfilm, now you're owned by Disney. Lucasfilm is not allowed to have any new ideas. Because if anybody's going to have a new idea, Disney's going to have a new idea, not you. Mm-hmm. We bought Lucasfilm for the IP that it owns, so you have 1,000 people whose full-time job all day, every year is to churn out more Star Wars content. Yeah. Because when you buy Lucasfilm, you only got 3 things. I mean 4. I don't think Disney's going to do any new American Graffiti. Do you guys see any new American Graffiti coming out? So you got Willow. How'd that turn out? Yeah.
Crushed it.
Beautiful. Can we get some more of that?
Nailed it.
Yeah. You got Indiana Jones. So we just can't wait for some more of that, right? And you got Star Wars. And so you got 1,000 people. I mean, they've burned Willow and Indiana Jones. So 1,000 people come to work every day. And the only thing they have to work on is we have to churn out more Star Wars content.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to keep 1,000 people busy making one movie every couple years, right? I mean,
right.
Or one animated series or one, I mean, there's these are the only things that they've got going on right now is the stuff that they're working. And I don't know. I think that this is the main problem is Lucasfilm has gotten too big for what it actually is.
It's too big.
Now this is what they feel they have to do. Yeah. You just kind of nailed it there, Dan.
Yeah. And Marvel has the same problem. They probably have twice as many people working there. It's probably like 2,000 people in a limited sandbox. Here's the IP that we bought you for. Make stuff based on this. And Marvel's painted themselves into a corner that they don't even have to have. They're like, we will only make stuff based on this IP, and it all has to fit into this continuity. Because for some reason, we're determined not to make a single project outside of that continuity that's not a one-off cartoon. We won't make any movies or any shows about any of these characters that don't tie in, which is like, why? Why can't you just make a thing that is not connected? And so they have a bigger sandbox.
The world's a big place, man.
And they've got more characters to draw on than Star Wars, but still, you've got probably 2,000 people. They're a full-time job all day, every day, churn out more content. I mean, it's not like it's Pixar. Disney buys Pixar, and they're just like, do what you do. Come up with cool animated movies. And, I mean, they don't have to be making Toy Story 5. I think that's a fate of their own choosing. But if they want to come up with a new idea, like Inside Out 1 a few years ago, they can. Lucasfilm and Marvel, they can't come out with an Inside Out. They can't do that. They're not allowed. Here is your IP. Play with it. Mm-hmm. And it gets kind of old.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like trying to come up with an in-between story or a sequel to an American classic. It's just like saying, hey, go write a story about what happened to Huck Finn after the book ended, something like that. It's something that's well established. It already has its own fan base. People have already kind of put the story together in their mind, and now you're going to change it. And I just feel like now that's something that's kind of getting old now. The first time they changed it was like, okay, at least it was George that changed it. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of a lot of the stuff that he did, but at least that was George. Now it's not even George. It's just Kathleen Kennedy says to whoever the intern is that just got promoted, hey, you're in charge of the story for this next project. I mean, that's not how this needs to be going. There's a lot of Star Wars people. There's a lot of Star Wars people that have done right by Star Wars recently that they just seem to not be utilizing. I love a lot of the stuff that Jon Favreau has done recently. I love a lot of the stuff that Bryce Dallas Howard has done recently. I love a lot of the stuff that Filoni has done recently. And then, but then who do we get in charge of the Acolyte? We get Leslie Headland, who has never done anything before, and who do we get in charge of all these other projects? It's just not anybody that matters. And that's the problem. So I don't know. There's an avenue and a way for them to do it that makes a lot of sense. It just doesn't appear to be the way that they want to do it. And that's just going to, I think we've already talked about it. Either a reboot is going to happen or something is going to happen that's going to make it so that they feel like they have to tell the same story over again, because that's what Disney does. We're seeing it right now with all these re-releases, these live action releases of animated classics, right? I mean, this is what they feel like they have to do. The same story told by a different perspective or in a different way. That's what they feel like they have to do with everything.
I don't know. The only way that I would watch a new version of the original trilogy is if they went the complete opposite way and made an animated version. I'd watch a cartoon, but I wouldn't trust Disney to do it well. I mean, it would have the message stamped all over it.
Until Kathleen Kennedy's not in charge, nothing's going to change. I feel like at the end of the day, there's just nothing really changing behind the scenes. I even felt a little weird in this last episode. I was like, did the rebels have to show up and save them? Are we going this route? It felt a little weird. I feel like the better story would have been they find a way to win. They just figure it out. And I felt like, why do they have to show up? Because Kathleen Kennedy just wants that to happen. I feel like she just wants the show to end that way. It felt weird. Yeah.
I mean, I could have seen an episode where, so Jude makes it through, and he's calming them into letting the pirate ship through the barrier and all that. Now, immediately the pirates get through, they start bombarding the planet and blowing crap up.
Right.
But then when KB crashes, he's like, this didn't have to happen. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I wanted you guys to just keep minting me credits. It's like, well, if that was your plan, maybe you don't
Just boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, maybe you don't bring the pirate ship in and start blowing everything
Yeah.
up. Maybe you just bring it in and fill it up with credits and be like, "We'll be back next month," and then you just leave.
Yeah, you
Maybe.
extort them. You don't bombard the surface.
Yeah,
I mean, pirates don't usually think things through, so
That's true.
I get it. You know what I mean?
so I don't want to
I get it a little
apart because of that, but like I could have seen it end where he got away with it, where he just loads up the ship full of gold. It was like, "I'll be back next month."
Yeah,
Deuces.
I kind of wish he would have kind of won in a way in the end. That could have been a cool way to end it.
Yeah, like maybe even a cut scene with this end, but like he's somewhere with his pockets full of them credits from where he was in the vault at least. You know?
Having him be a scoundrel does not mean you cannot make him a beloved scoundrel. I mean, Johnny Depp played a beloved scoundrel pirate in what, 4 movies? And I mean, that's, he was a bad guy, for the majority of that. He's a pirate that's looking out for pirate interests, but he was so beloved, and I think they did a really good job with Jude for the most part. I think they did a very good job with that character, but you would have liked to see him get away or him have some kind of a one-off thing where a freak thing that just kind of falls his way or something, just like you got with Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. It would have been really cool to have that, but yeah, and I think there were a lot of things that didn't make sense, but we're talking about Space Goonies here, and I'm not going to pull the details apart on it.
Right.
I was kind of hoping and expecting him to have one of those moments like he did on the planet that was kind of like a spa where he comes up out of the sewer and he's got all the gold and stuff. Like, to get away with some of the stuff. Like, at least we see him get away with something. And everybody wins.
Yeah.
That'd have been cool.
But I know the conclusions that Disney is going to draw is that, okay, we just made the Skeleton Crew. Nobody watched it. We made the Acolyte. Nobody watched it, and twice as many people who watched it hated it. So, we made Andor, and the 6 people who watched it really loved it. But we can't afford to spend that kind of money for like a room full of people. And what they're going to see is the common denominator is they're going to be like, oh, there's no legacy characters here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's exactly it. You're right.
That's
You're right.
Way.
They're going to be like, everything has to have it. Like, if you look at it, they only make good things when there aren't any legacy characters. Look at The Mandalorian. It was great. I mean, they even managed to do an episode with Ahsoka in it that was really good, where she fought the lady who had the Beskar spear. But they made it all the way through season 2. I think was the Boba Fett episode in season 2 the one episode that was kind of cool. Yeah, I think it was one episode maybe. But you had Luke at the end, which was awesome. But season 3 just falls apart because now you're chock full of like Ahsoka scenes and Luke scenes, and you're retconning and trying to get Grogu back away from Luke, and so they can't touch those for some reason. Every time they get near a legacy character, they screw it up. I don't know. It's like kryptonite.
Yeah.
But that's all we're going to get going forward. I really think that's the lesson they're going to take from this.
Yeah.
They learn all the wrong lessons every time, unfortunately. And so this is going to be no different. They're not going to see this as a successful show because people didn't watch it. And I think they're going to completely and totally miss why people didn't watch it. You didn't tell people about it. It's very simple. If you want people to watch a show, you got to tell them that the show is coming. And they never did.
Well,
they had opportunity.
The world is still really mad about the Acolyte.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
this is the same. Yeah, this is the same thing that happened to Solo.
You can't just expect people to find this. You can't expect people to find this and watch it because the Acolyte still has left such a bad place in people's heads. There's no way that you could just expect people to be like, oh, there's a new Star Wars thing. Let's just watch it. No, you've got to tell us what it is. You've got to do a promotional tour. How many times did we see one of these cast members on a late night show talking about it? I didn't see it. Did you guys? No. I didn't see any of that.
I'm sure Jude Law could have got a spot. I mean,
Jude Law could have got a spot. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of, I mean, how many times did you see commercials during, the football season for this? I didn't see it. You don't think that's a good opportunity to try to bring in the male 18 to 45 demographic? I mean, this is the kind of people that you need to bring in, and you're not even trying. So, yeah, they didn't even try to get people to watch it, but they think that this is one of those things that people should just want to watch. It's Star Wars, so people will just watch it anyway. And if they don't watch it, it's because we did something wrong. No, what you did wrong was you didn't promote it. That's why people didn't watch it. They did all kinds of tours for the Acolyte, and that's what opened up the door to us hating the Acolyte, because they said all the wrong things on the tours. And so this is like the opposite problem. They were too quiet about it.
Well, then this is what happened to Solo. Solo wasn't great, but the reason it bombed is it came out the same year as The Last Jedi.
Exactly.
I mean, it could have been
thrown out to suffer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been The Empire Strikes Back, and if it came out like a few months after The Last Jedi,
Yeah.
it would have struggled. You know.
I got to run, boys.
All right.
Hey,
Hey,
rock and roll, man.
Yeah, no.
All right,
just keep petitioning for Acolyte season 2. We deserve it. It's what we need.
That's right.
Yeah. That baby.
Check our boy out on
college.
YouTube, man.
Yeah.
Check our boy out on YouTube.
If you end up on my channel, I'm just gonna automatically ban you. Just it's not ban. I'm just gonna block. No, I'm just kidding. You're welcome. Everybody's welcome, except Kathy Kennedy. Not welcome.
Yeah, he's not welcome anymore. Oh,
right.
so yeah, it's sad. Star Wars is a sad state because this was a good show, and yeah, I want that SM33 like something. I want an SM33 Lego kid. I want like an SM33 Funko Pop.
Yes.
But
I noticed they added him to the beginning of the Disney Star Wars screen. Did you
like
notice
the heads
that?
and the faces.
Yeah.
Silva's in there too.
He's in there, so I don't know if that means they've got plans for him or not to be kind of a face of something, but anyway,
Yeah,
it's something.
I don't know, man. It's sad to see something that you cared about so much. It's just like when a good thing comes out, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like that with Marvel. You know what I mean? I feel like if anything good comes out Marvel, it's almost like, but does it really matter? You know what I mean? If it's good and if it's action packed and if it's true to the stories and the characters that we like, and if Fantastic Four is great, does that matter? Because the universe is already destroyed. So I don't know. You know what I mean? That when you're dealing with something like this, this is why you really, Disney in particular, when we're talking about Marvel, needed to consider a reboot a long time ago, because now it's just too far gone for me to care about whether or not Fantastic Four is even going to be good.
Guardians 3 and Deadpool and Wolverine were both really good, if not great. Did it really improve?
Did they matter?
Did it improve your outlook on the MCU going forward? No, not at all.
And the thing about Deadpool and Wolverine, it didn't really have any impact that I can tell on the MCU at large.
No.
So it's almost like they've maybe taken a little bit of a cue from DC, like, hey, we can make some movies that are kind of connected, but they're not really.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, how that will all play out with Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't know, but
yeah. It felt like that was just a Fox wrap up, right? That was just a Fox wrap up. They're just like, okay, so we own this now, but we can't transition into it until we technically close it out. So we're going to close it out in a blaze of glory, and it'll be amazing. And then it will just absolutely not matter to anything that you watch moving forward. But at least it'll all connect and make sense. That's the only thing that they cared about. And so now, if we see Deadpool again in something that matters, I think it will not be as good of a movie. That's my prediction.
And Ryan Reynolds, I mean, Deadpool was right there with you, Tim. He makes jokes about the multiverse being bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the Guardians did the same thing with the Guardians, just wrapped up those characters. I know it ended by saying we would see Star-Lord again. And with the other team of Guardians was Rocket and Cosmo the dog and Adam Warlock, saying we'd see them. We're not going to see them again.
We're not going to.
James Gunn isn't coming back to do it, so who's going to do it?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and do we really want anybody else to do it? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not.
I'm sure there's people who could, but do we trust Marvel to find them? You know? So no.
Because when they tried Takai Waititi, I mean, he didn't do a good job. Anybody that they've tried to kind of fill in what James Gunn did has just kind of been a miss, and so I just don't see that happen. And that's the kind of problem that we have with and it's the kind of problem that we have with Star Wars. I mean, it's just, if you get something good, it just doesn't even matter anymore, and that's the problem. I want to have something where I'm thrilled to see what happens next. I'm really excited about the project that I just watched, and now I have a different piece to the puzzle, so that when the next project comes out in 4 to 6 months, I'm really going to be stoked for that. It's not like that at all right now. You know what I mean? If I see this Captain America 4 movie that they got coming out, and it's terrible, and then I go see Thunderbolts, which will be mildly entertaining, and then I see Fantastic Four, which is a coin flip. I mean, I can't see me from project to project being excited about any of those and the potential that's coming down the line with them. You know what I mean? I remember after Iron Man 2 when I saw the hammer, and I was just like, oh boy, they're actually doing it. You know what I mean? That's gone now. That's not even a thing anymore. Right? They're not trying to connect from movie to movie to pull you in and hook you to the next movie anymore. They don't even care.
Well, they don't have anything. They've emptied the toy box of all the characters that you care about.
Yeah.
And they don't want to reboot. So
yeah.
Yeah, they hobbled together Kang the Conqueror, and then that all kind of fell apart because the guy got fired.
Jonathan Majors. Yeah.
And but even then, it didn't feel like they were connecting everything.
And everybody had already given up before he got in trouble because people were so mad that Ant-Man beat him by himself. So they'd already nerfed him. People were already mad, and so that just gave him an excuse to walk away. And the characters that they do have left, they've given us so much lackluster stuff. You don't even want them to touch them. It's like the Fantastic Four movie's coming out, but you feel protective of the Fantastic Four. They've already been in some very bad movies. You're like
Three of them.
Yeah, you're like, don't do this to them again. Come on, man. They only got so many shots before the public at large just gives up on the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. And if the public at large doesn't get to fall in love with Ben Grimm, you're gonna feel bad about that. If he gets one more bad movie, like, is the Fantastic Four ever really gonna get its shot to be like big time movie?
Yeah, I felt for the longest time that the Fantastic Four is not something in cinema that can stand on its own very well. I've always kind of felt like they needed to kind of weave within the fibers of the MCU to have somebody else to play off of, because I think that was the main problem with the Fox properties that they attempted, was they were not able to get any kind of excitement built up around those particular characters. Marvel people love those characters, right? We love Reed. We love everything that Reed brings to the table. He's the most brilliant mind in the Marvel universe. And we love Johnny and his carefree lifestyle. And we love Sue and the dynamic there with her and everybody else. And then Ben. And we love all of that. But they're the first family of Marvel. We always say that. But this is just one of those situations where the public at large has such a bad taste in their mouth from those bad movies, and the characters themselves just kind of need someone else to play off of. Whenever I would read the Fantastic Four comics, the ones that were the best to me are the ones where they would be working with Spider-Man, they would be working with the Avengers, they would be working with, other people in New York. Those are the stories that I think we all want to see. And unfortunately now, those stories are probably gone because most of the Avengers are gone. And that's unfortunate. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't want to see them working with the Black Knight. I don't want to see them working with Blade. I don't want to see them working with Moon Knight. You know what I mean? Or Ms. Marvel or Kate Bishop. I don't want to see them working with those. I want to see them working with the Avengers. And that's, so it's going to be a pretty hard sell, I think.
But Reed is the smartest guy in the room. He's the most brilliant mind in Marvel. And that's impressive when he's surrounded by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner and Hank Pym. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's way smarter than all of those guys,
Like way smarter,
But when he's way smarter than scientist number 1 and scientist number 2 on the call sheet, when he's smarter than guy in lab coat number 3, that's not as impressive as outsmarting Banner and Stark and all of them at the same time. It's not the same thing. And so when they're not there, and the thing is, like, he's super fun when he's doing stuff like fighting the Hulk. And other big powerhouses, when he fights Thor or something, when the thing is going toe to toe with, yelling his clobbering time and going against something really big, that's fun. But all those opportunities are already gone. That's why they need a reboot. We've said it forever, but they're determined not to do it.
Yeah.
Is Daredevil going to be good? Yeah. Is Daredevil going to be the good guys? Travis, did you watch the Born Again trailer that just came out?
Yes.
Is Daredevil going to be good, or are we being fooled?
I want it to be good, but it gives those at least the trailer gives the vibes of the Netflix series, and it gives you that feeling, and you bring in the characters back together. Even the guy that plays Punisher, he's back in
John Barenthal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you're like, oh, hey, it's back. Like, this is going to be like it was before. But can it be on Disney Plus what it was on Netflix? I don't know. I mean, I know Disney Plus, they've got Deadpool now, and they've got some of the more mature stuff on there. But can it be? I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, like I was for Superman.
I love gritty superheroes, and I loved what they did with the first Daredevil series on Netflix. That was something I just absolutely loved. I do think there is a big danger with Disney Plus of kind of almost changing things a little too much here. I feel like the storyline and where we're picking up this story and how it's going to go into the MCU is something that I think is kind of an interesting choice for the property that they own. So they could have probably started this a little further back. They're starting it when the Kingpin is already the mayor, and he's already aware of who Daredevil is and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of an odd choice for the timeline. And then this is kind of like a resurgence of Matt Murdock. This is almost like his version of the Dark Knight Returns, right? Where it's just like he's been gone for a while, and he's, we've had a mutual understanding between him and Fisk and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like now they're going to try to bring him back and kind of try to make it what it was. But the point of the Dark Knight Returns was that it wasn't the same. Okay, it wasn't the same, and it wasn't as easy, and it wasn't, So I don't know if that's the Daredevil that we want in the MCU, but we'll see.
There's part of me as I watched it that was tainted because he was in She-Hulk, and
yeah,
I just can't wash that out.
In the worst role possible.
In the worst way possible.
Yeah,
So against what the Catholic character of Daredevil was in the comics.
Well, not just the fact that he had a one-nighter with She-Hulk, which was weird, okay, but just him in that series alone, in the role that he played, was something that was a little much for me, because that series was kind of a little goofy. And he's not really a goofy character. So I don't know, but yeah.
So
Dan, what do you think, Dan?
Man, the trailer was good, but
yeah,
I mean, it's like what, 2 minutes, something like that, for a series. It's 8 episodes. I mean, you can find 2 good minutes. You might be able to find 2 good minutes in the Acolyte.
Yeah, there were. The trailer wasn't bad. Remember?
Yeah,
we all saw Trinity in the trailer, and we're just like, oh, right.
Yeah.
So,
like, I don't know, Disney. I just don't like. And really, guys, like, I've liked more stuff than Tim. I probably like more stuff than you, Travis, because, like, again, like, Agatha All Along doesn't bother me. She-Hulk doesn't bother me near as much as other people does. Love and Thunder doesn't bother me. If you're going for a comedic tone, I will go with you. You know what I'm saying? I will let you be silly. As long as I think it's being kind of funny, I will let it be. But if you're going to be serious, which this show is definitely going to be serious, they are not going to not be serious here. There's no way that this is not a serious show. Then you can't be stupid. You can be silly and stupid as long as it's still kind of fun. I cannot tolerate when you're being serious and stupid. That doesn't go together. So in Disney, like, even the stuff I've tolerated and I let it slide, I can acknowledge that it is stupid. But I let the stupid slide because it's silly and they're going for a comedic tone. I'm like, okay, they're just being stupid for a joke. I don't know if they can do anything that's not stupid anymore.
Yeah.
Stupid might be baked in. So I'm scared. That's basically where I'm at. The hopefulness makes me scared. That's where I am, because I don't want to get.
They're going to ride that. They're going to ride that wave of knowing that they have tricked people into watching this show, into releasing something absolutely abysmal in the show. You can take that to the bank. Now that they've tricked us into thinking it's X, they're going to introduce it as Y when we actually watch the show, and that's going to be the main problem. I can see it coming a mile away. There's something in this show that is going to absolutely bug all of us. And we don't know what it is yet, but they have tricked us into watching the show on this trailer.
Which young Avenger do you think they're going to roll out?
Oh, don't even speak that into existence. Don't even. But I mean, something like that has got to be what they're pushing, right?
It's going to be a multiverse Daredevil show. Is what
yeah,
right.
Yeah. He's gonna run into the Netflix Daredevil. Charlie Cox is gonna do some Patty Duke stuff. It's gonna be great.
Team up.
Team up
into the Daredevil verse.
Oh. Iron Fist might be there, Tim. Won't you be excited?
Oh, man.
Iron Fist again?
What's his face? The Prince of Flowers, whatever his name was. Finn Jones, that was his name. Yeah, so.
Okay. So I think we covered that. What was the biggest thing I saw that happened this week? Travis, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet at withtravis.com. You can also find me at withtravis on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube, but that's at Build with Travis because it's all Lego stuff. So.
All right. Hopefully someday there will be an SM33 and you can watch Travis build it on YouTube.
That's right.
Yeah.
We need that SM33.
You can find Bone Bridger at Bone Bridger on YouTube. We'll put it in the description. It might already be there. And we will be back. Right there is Tim. Subscribe to at Nerd Champs. I'm Dan. We are the Nerd Champs. You are here. You are on our page. You've already found us. Like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends about us.